Good afternoon, and welcome to yet another episode of The League of Biblical Enthusiasts. So we are continuing our coverage of Bible translations, particularly the New Testament and the first millennium. In our last episode, we looked at 5, and they were Syriac, Coptic, Armenian, Georgian, and Ethiopic. Today we begin with Arabic translations. Now, in antiquity, Arabia covered the area west of Mesopotamia, south of Syria, and east of Palestine. It was about 1/3 the size of Europe. Very little is known about early Christianity and Christian contacts in this area, but it seems that Christianity was well known in the region by the 4th century. Christianity spread to Arabia after Constantine conquered Byzantium in 324, and it was adopted by several Bedouin tribes. The spread of Islam in the 7th century forced Jews and Christians who remained in the conquered lands to adopt Arabic as their primary language. Translation of the Bible was outlawed, but Jews and Christians translated it secretly, and therefore several independent versions arose. The evidence suggests that translations into Arabic were first made from Greek, Old Syriac, the Peshitta, Coptic, and Latin versions. At present, the oldest known manuscript of the Arabic Bible is Codex Arabicus, containing a portion of the Gospels and the letters of Paul from the 8th century or the 9th century. This manuscript is one of the most well-known palimpsests preserved at the Library of St. Catherine's Monastery in the Sinai. Now, what is a palimpsest? Well, a palimpsest is a manuscript or piece of writing on which the original writing was effaced or rubbed out to make way for later writing. Today, we write something, we're not satisfied, we crumple it up and throw it to the trash. But in ancient days, parchment was not easy to come by. As a matter of fact, it was a very expensive material to write on. And so if you were finished with your parchment and its writing, you could rub it out and try to erase as much as possible and write a new text on top of it. And so, of course, we do have a number of biblical manuscripts that are palimpsests, and it is important to get to the base layer, the original layer, because that, of course, would be the oldest layer of the text. And Codex Arabicus is one of these palimpsests. And there's quite a story to be told about the discovery of some of these palimpsests. The Sisters of Sinai come to mind. Maybe we'll deal with that. And their importance for biblical study. Now let's talk about early Western versions. That meaning Old Latin. The book of Acts records how the gospel made its way westward into Greece and Rome. We saw in Acts chapter 2, verses 5 through 11, visitors from Rome were present at the Feast of Pentecost. Now, in fact, the Greek language prevailed over Latin in most of the Roman Empire until the 3rd century, except in southern Gaul and northern Africa, where the earliest Latin biblical texts emerged. In the eastern part of the empire, with Byzantium, Constantinople, and eastward, Greek continued as the centuries progressed to be the primary language. But in the West, in Italy and North Africa in particular, Latin became the primary language. The term Old Latin is a collective term for Latin versions in existence before the Vulgate. Gradually, the West became Latin speaking by around 250 AD, and it became the language of Christian writers and theologians, so that soon there was a great need for a Latin Bible. Some of the Latin authors you might be familiar with would be Augustine, City of God, Confessions, Tertullian, and Pliny the Older, or the Elder, and a host of others. Latin translations probably first appeared in the Roman province of Northern Africa, and this region covers modern-day Tunisia, Algeria, and Morocco. Ancient Carthage in North Africa had especially strong ties to Roman culture. Several great biblical teachers came from North Africa. Tertullian of Carthage, as we mentioned, Cyprian of Carthage, and Augustine of Hippo. Cyprian was the first to use the Latin text, and Tertullian quotes extensively from Scripture, but apparently translated text directly from Greek. Augustine was not knowledgeable in Greek and must surely have used a Latin translation. Most of the evidence for the Old Latin version is gleaned from quotes in the Latin Fathers. The Old Latin version of the New Testament is well attested with just over 150 manuscript fragments, about 52 of the Gospels, 29 of Acts, 37 of the Pauline epistles, 26 of the Catholic epistles, and 15 of the book of Revelation. Now let's move on to the Latin Vulgate. The Latin Vulgate is important in the history of the Bible on at least two counts. Number one, it played a dominant role in Western Europe for 1,000 years. And secondly, during the Reformation, when people needed the Bible in their own language, it was the basis for the vernacular translations. The Latin Vulgate was translated by Jerome and his associates during the year 383 through 405 AD. Pope Damasus I, Bishop of Rome from around 366 to 384, commissioned Jerome to revise and standardize the Old Latin versions. There were so many differences among the Old Latin texts that people could not be certain of which text to follow. So Jerome, who was a brilliant scholar with a firm grasp of Latin and Greek, and later he studied Hebrew, was called upon to fix this problem. Jerome's work, later known as the Vulgate, became the standard edition of the Bible for over 1,000 years. The word Vulgate simply means common or plain. Later in life, Jerome moved to Bethlehem, where he founded a monastery and was tutored in Hebrew by a rabbi who visited him by night so as not to offend fellow Jews, who would not have taken very well to him teaching a Christian the Hebrew language. Jerome used the Hebrew text as the basis for his translation of the Old Testament, and for this he was criticized by authorities in the church because for them it meant he had devalued the Septuagint as a translation and favored the Jewish scriptures over the Greek Christian. Several early manuscripts containing or reflecting the Vulgate survive today. Dating from the 8th century, the Codex Amiatinus is the earliest and best preserved manuscript of the complete Vulgate Bible. Codex Fuldensis, dating from around 545, contains most of the New Testament in the Vulgate version, but the four Gospels are harmonized into a continuous narrative derived from the Diatessaron. Remember that, from Tatian. On April 8, 1546, we're moving now ahead 1,000 years, the Council of Trent declared the Vulgate to be the authentic Bible of the Roman Catholic Church. But in all practicality, it had been such well before then. The 1592 revision of the Vulgate, known as the Clementine edition, became the standard Bible text of the Roman Rite of the Catholic Church and remained so until 1979 when the Nova Vulgata was promulgated. Now let's talk about the Gothic version translations. The ancient Goths founded an extensive empire north of the lower Danube and the Black Sea. The Gothic Empire was split into two groups, the Ostrogoths on the east and the Visigoths on the west. The Visigoths learned about Christianity first and carried it to their kinsmen in the east. And as early as the 3rd century, Gothic warriors occasionally made raids into the Roman Empire, and it was through Christian priests who were captured that the Goths learned the gospel. At the age of 30, a young Gothic man named Wulfilas, meaning Little Wolf, was ordained. He and scholars under his supervision are responsible for both creating a Gothic alphabet and translating the Bible into his Gothic language. He translated the Bible using the Septuagint as his base translation. His translation was taken to Spain and northern Italy during the 5th century when the Goths conquered those areas. And his work may have become the standard Bible of much of Europe at that time. There are only 9 extant manuscripts of the Gothic version, many fragmentary, and none are a complete copy of the whole Bible. The most famous Gothic manuscript is called Codex Argentius, or the Silver Codex, and it dates from the 5th or 6th century. Each of the 4 Gospels is written in silver letters on purple vellum, and the first lines in different sections are written, inked in gold. Codex Argentius is located in the Library of Uppsala, University of Sweden. On April 5th, 1995, parts of the Codex that were on public display in the library were stolen. The stolen parts were recovered 1 month later in a storage box at the Stockholm Central Railway Station. What a story that would make. Now we're moving on to the Old Slavonic version. Historians credit the 9th century Byzantine missionaries, Saint Cyril, and Methodius, with standardizing the language and using it in translating the Bible and other ancient Greek ecclesiastical texts as part of the Christianization of the Slavs. The late date of the Old Slavonic version, 9th century, means it has little value in determining the earliest form of the Greek text. But what we call Old Church Slavonic played an important role in the history of the Slavic languages and served as a basis and model for later Church Slavonic traditions. And some Eastern Orthodox and Eastern Catholic churches use this later Church Slavonic as a liturgical language to this day. Some Orthodox churches, such as the Bulgarian Orthodox Church, the Russian Orthodox Church, Serbian Orthodox Church, Ukrainian Orthodox Church, and Macedonian Orthodox Church, still use Church Slavonic in their services and chants. So there you have it, just a quick overview of early translations of the New Testament. There's a lot, of course, that we did not cover. Hopefully in the description, you will be encouraged to do your further research, chase down some links, YouTube videos, books, resources, and so forth to educate yourself further on a lot of things that we did not cover. Now, in our next video, we would like to begin looking at early English translations of the Bible, so that eventually we'll make our way up to present times to talk about the myriad, hundreds and hundreds, even thousands of translations. And of course, we're focusing on English. But stay tuned, lots to be learned. Please like, subscribe, do that thing. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'll do my best to try to trace them down and do my best to give an answer. If you have any comments, please educate me. There's so many things still to learn. Updates that I haven't made. Probably mistakes perhaps that I've made. Please point these out. I like you, want to be a learner. And so thank you for paying attention. And we'll see you in the next episode of The League of Biblical Enthusiasts.